I want to change lives. I want to show people how to progress in their money. I want to show people how to progress in their mindset. I want to show people how to progress in their brand so that way they can take care of their family, take care of their finances, and experience freedom.
What is going on? We're back with another episode of the Finest Hour podcast, and today I have a special guest, someone who's very close to me, dear to me, an unbelievably successful entrepreneur, speaker, businessman. I mean, you name it, this guy embodies it, and there's none other than Andy Audate. What is going on, man?
My man, my brother from another mother. What's happening, baby?
Nothing much, man. I'm feeling great, man. I'm really appreciative of you being on the show today. I know you are a super busy guy, but the one thing you do have is tons and tons of knowledge, and everybody has time for that. So I want to make sure that we kind of tap into that today and let people know what's going on. But the first thing is maybe give a little people maybe a little bit of an intro as far as who you are, what you do. Let's give them a little brief rundown.
Yeah, look, I'm a connected, loving, vulnerable, ambitious, driven, hungry, determined man. And what I do is I teach people how to grow their small business and personal brand. And the way that I do that is through my speaking seminars as well as through my online trainings. And I have thousands upon thousands of clients nationwide. And I'm 25 now, and I'm growing my enterprise and the people around me. I run an organization, a community called Progression, where the people in the community just have a mindset that we get to grow on a daily basis. So every single day we're growing. So that way we recognize that there's no opportunities to fall back if our mindset is focused on growing forward in our business and in our life.
That's excellent. I mean, to be honest, I've seen it firsthand. So everybody that's listening or watching this right now, he's 100% honest. I know he has his progression community. I, in fact, was actually a guest on multiple progression conferences, a speaking event, which are filled to the brim and nothing but value and unbelievable impact. Still to this day, I get so many messages from people that were in attendance, whether it's Instagram stories, social media posts, retweets on Twitter. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's incredible. And that's all the impact coming from you. So as a person right now at 25 years old, massively successful with tons more success on the way, where did all of this start with you where you were feeling like, you know what, I need to get to here? And you looked in the mirror and you're like, you know what, where I am right now isn't quite where I need to be. I need to progress.
Well, it started when I was younger, man. It started when I come from an impoverished area on the East Coast, and I mean, but that's the thing, man. You know, as I'm doing more shows, man, and I've interviewed more people, I've recognized, man, that these podcasts, like the stories are the same, and I've been an interviewer and interviewed people, and they constantly, you know, have that complaint where they're like, I need we gotta do something a little different. And the reason why is because I'm starting to see like the common thread is, hey, here's my story. And getting on a lot of podcasts recently, I'm starting to see like, it's my story is becoming scripted. So I got to get away from the script. But really, I come from an impoverished area on the East Coast. Like, I'm from the hood, the dirty, but the Northeast region. And I was raised in the smallest city, in the smallest town in the city, and which is about a square mile. So you can run from one end to the other end and leave the city within a jog. And in this environment, it was like crabs in a bucket where people are walking around with guns, people are walking around with blood on the floor and not thinking twice, and people getting jumped, and it's like, oh, let me take a video for my friends so we can laugh at it later. And it's that environment, and I knew that this wasn't a right place for me, so I wanted to get out. So I got a mentor, and he showed me the ropes in running a business. So I started my first business at 19. Then at 21, I opened up at 21, I made my first $1 million from that business, which was in the cell phone industry, telecommunication. And the way that I made the money was through financing. Me and my friends made a joke. We said we're gonna finance the block, because we were the only place that was heavy with no credit financing. So we targeted people who had $50,000 gross household income or less. So if you made $2,500 a month, you can purchase an iPhone from me, and we would finance you on a monthly basis. And we were selling hundreds of phones. So I want you to imagine, like, if you're selling $1,000 phone and you sell hundreds, you're making a lot of money, you know?
Oh yeah.
And that was my experience.
I mean, that's an incredible experience. It's coming from that background. I mean, all the time you hear rags to riches stories and how people made it. And obviously the hard work, the grind, and the hustle, that's included in the packaging. But it's just the fact that you went from one circumstance, removed yourself from that circumstance on the East Coast, now you're on the West Coast. You know, I know one thing that you did mention, and this is a question I get from a ton of my listeners, a ton of my followers on social media. You mentioned you had a mentor that helped you out. And you and I might understand this concept, but it's when you talk to, say, the audience that I have, and a lot of people don't have mentors, don't have coaches. What are some of the reasons why you could give based on what you've experienced, how important a mentor is to your success or even the speed of achieving?
So in my experience, it was that essentially that I was working for a guy at Metro PCS. He owned a store, but I never met the dude. I didn't meet the guy, and I'm working now. My direct leader was a white guy, so I'm thinking that everyone in this organization is white. Now this is still in an experience where a lot of the people that surround me it's like a black thing, white thing, Latino thing, you know. So there's still like race segregation. So I'm in the store. My boss is white. I know my boss is white. My direct manager is white, and then his boss is white. And so like we're levels up and it's all white people. Then one day I'm at the store and a guy walks in, a black guy with a suit wearing earrings, and he's bald. He got his earrings in like I do today. He's walking in on his phone, and you can hear his shoes clanking on the hardwood floor, and he walks by me. And I didn't even know. I'm thinking that we're being robbed like in the most silent, positive, confident way. Like I'm like, damn, that's a gangsta ass way to rob somebody, like in a suit. Like would nobody would think that. So I see the dude, I'm walking by, and he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, "What's up?" And then he walks by me, and I go to the office manager. I'm like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's the owner. He owns all the locations in the area." I said, "The owner's black?"
Wow.
Like the only time I recognized like black people, especially of success, was in the streets. Like I don't know of a black. That's cool. So that gave me an outlet to say it was possible. That to see that it's possible. That I didn't have to do drugs or sell drugs in order to be successful. I saw that it was successful. That there was opportunity. So I learned from him as much as I could. Still to this day, you know. This was back in 2012. I just had dinner. I flew back to the East Coast and I had dinner with him. And at that time when I worked for him, he had 10 stores, 10 locations. Now he's at 100 and something. And he's opening up stores on a weekly basis now around the country. And so he had that mindset of progression. And this is the first time I'm actually sharing, but his company's name was Evolution. So his company name was Evolution. And I was like a baby off his hard work. So my company was named Progression Wireless. So his was Evolution, mine was Progression.
Wow.
And in that small industry, we all had like a name, like one adjective, and then wireless at the end. So someone I worked with, he opened up his location. He called it Supreme Wireless. Mine was Progression Wireless. This other person was Evolution Wireless. So that's how the industry worked. And then but I kept that name Progression and then moved into a new industry and kept the name Progression and moved into the conference name.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, it's amazing what you can learn just in that little tidbit of information, going from, I don't think this is possible, to seeing someone of your skin color, same race, doing it, and then learning from them. And then years later coming back, you have success, they have success. You know, it's just incredible what you can learn from that type of a person. And being that you have the progression, you know, that name is kind of stuck with you for a long period of time. You know, it's been a part of your life. And now you have the Progression Conference. You have all these different things involving that. You know, kind of when you look at progression as a whole, I know one thing that people struggle with is they don't feel they're progressing fast enough. You know, do you feel if there's any barometer they can use to kind of see or rate their progression, or certain things that they can use to be like, you know what, I am actually progressing, but because some people don't really feel that way. They feel like they're not going anywhere.
So I'm in a transition right now, and my progression is being slower. My barometer or my accelerometer is being like turned down a bit. And the reason it's being turned down a bit is so I can widen. That's why it's being turned down a bit. Because with accelerated progression, you can be straight and narrow. You can go very fast, straight and narrow. But in order for you to go far, you got to turn the accelerator down. So for the last couple of years, I've always been about accelerated growth, accelerated progression. Go fast, go hard, go quick. Now I'm at a stage in my life where, as I've learned and I progress, I share with my audience my shortcomings as well as my new understandings, so that way they can grow with me. So the people who are listening can grow with me. So in the stage of where I'm at, which is scaling my business and having the business run without me, completely run without me, is me slowing down my accelerometer and putting systems into place where other people are running the business for me on my behalf. So like right now, as we speak, I'm looking at our system and we have thousands of phone calls going outbound today. And they are selling tickets, they're selling programs, they're selling Audate, they're setting up meetings. And back in the day, I mean, not back in the day, years ago, it was just me doing that.
Yeah.
Now my energy was so high that I could accomplish that. But there came a point where I recognized that there's only so much I can hustle just me, and I need to grow the team. So, in the experience that I had with the cell phone industry, I had the experience of learning from a mentor and working for a mentor and seeing firsthand their systems and processes, and then duplicating it in my business, because I knew that there was a specific role that was needed for the front line. So I know that I needed a sales manager. I know I needed a sales rep. I knew the 4-step sales process. I knew how to place the phones because I learned everything from Metro PCS and T-Mobile. And I knew that we needed an office manager. I knew what online systems that we needed because I just took everything I did at Metro. All I did was rebrand the company with a different name. And we were selling the same products, but I rebranded the company with a different name. So to the customers, it was a different service as well as a different brand, but the systems to sell and scale the business were the same. But when I transitioned into the personal development space and became a thought leader and a business trainer, business coach, as well as a marketing expert, there was different roles that I was not acute to. Like I was ignorant to so many roles, as well as different systems, as well as different online processes. Like how does the landing page, for example, talk to the CRM system? Like a landing page is a one site that has one goal, one common goal. A website is a site that has multiple directories. So a landing page for like the progression conference, how does one person put their name in and my entire staff be aware of it, and who's responsible for that new person? And then recognizing that there's hundreds of people that come in on a regular basis, how do I equally distribute them? And then what do they do with it after? And then who else does it go to? So like there was a multitude of systems that I had to put in place, and it sounds easy, but it is challenging to scale. So when you're at that position, you got to dial the accelerometer back a bit, look at your business so that way you can go wide. So instead of Audate focusing on, a handful of clients, I have essentially extended myself to about 15 people, and that 15 people, they're able to go wide on my behalf and reach out to people and bring them in using my systems.
That's a huge, huge, huge gem. I hope that everyone is listening and watching to that understands what you're saying, because I know, and I can vouch for that firsthand, you're only one man. And I know for the businesses that I run with my fitness business, it's like I'm my only person. So if I'm doing the sales and the phone calls and the outreach and the onboarding, that's so much work for one person. There's only 24 hours a day. But when you, like you said, if you can multiply yourself amongst the team, with everyone having different roles to take care of, systems to set up, you can be so many places. And like you said, dial things down. You can go wide. You can make so much more of a huge funnel to just get everything working in your favor. And that's incredible, because I know that takes a lot of skill, a lot of time, and a lot of effort. And I know a lot of people will probably have questions for that. So I'll make sure when they ask them, I'll direct them to you. Because I know in this particular, you're the guest on the show, you know way more than I. So you're the one that's going to have to answer those, because I understand your answers will be way more specific. But when you go and you kind of progress forward, I know everyone has to have a certain type of mentality. And I know we were talking before we got on here and off camera, we were talking about a specific mentality. You have that Mamba mentality, being at the time of the show, Kobe Bryant unfortunately passed away. And there's many, many things that happen when there are certain things like death that happen. Most people look at it as losses. I know that I was told by one of my mentors, with every loss, there's always a lesson. In this particular impactful situation, how has that impacted you? Or maybe what could you offer as your take on it, as far as the obvious, which the strategy aspect, but maybe what people can take from that to help progress in their life?
Well, when I found out that Kobe passed away, I found out I was at church and someone walked up as we were ending the service. Someone walked up, distraught for some reason, walked up to the pastor with his phone in his hand and gave the phone to the pastor. And then it was suspicious how the person walked up, so security ran after him and grabbed him. And then the pastor dropped to his knees and he said, "Wow, Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash." And the whole audience was like, "Woo!" Like, "Oh my gosh!" And then next thing you know, man, I didn't feel any emotions. Now as much as I just recently discovered emotions. So for the people who follow me for years, I went through a personal development training program that supported me in feeling emotions. I didn't feel emotions for a long period of time, actually. Very numb to emotions, and so that kind of kicked in again right then and there, where I was just kind of like, why is everyone in shock? And I'm just like looking at everyone, like, I know why people are in shock, but why are these emotions running throughout this room? People are crying, like people hysterically emotional, and I'm just like, it didn't hit me. It ended up hitting me around like midnight a couple of hours ago. So essentially 14 hours ago, and I was just laying down in bed and I was just thinking to myself, I was more intrigued by what his work ethic and his definition of life and greatness was, and really resonated with that and was inspired with that to essentially make sure that my life work is at a point where it can inspire people even though I pass away.
That's an excellent point.
Because yeah, man, once you like I was in, so we're recording this in January 27, 2020. My intention is for this episode to people listen to it years to come, where someone in 2022 is like, oh man, I'm listening to Handy Audate on the show, or I'm listening to Justin on the show. And so in November of 2019, I went to go see my grandfather. And when I saw my grandfather, he's laying on his deathbed and he's looking up at the ceiling. And the crazy part is, I wrote about that in my book. That's the introduction to my book, No More Average. You're laying down on your deathbed, your eyes are glued to the ceiling. What are the thoughts that you have? Is it the thoughts of you living a life as the real you, or you living your life as the unfulfilled you? And my grandfather was literally having those thoughts of like, what has his life amounted to? He's in a position where he can't really move, but he's thinking, and his words are not in abundance. So he's very careful with the words because it takes a lot of energy for him to speak. And I remember the night, me getting on a flight to come to Los Angeles. So I'm leaving the East Coast. I got to come back to LA. I got a lot of work to do. I got to come back to LA. And I start crying on the way to the airport. It's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning. I start crying and I'm looking at the light bulbs. And as I'm looking at the light bulbs in the street lights, I see the lack of importance of those light bulbs. I'm like, yo, that shit is not important at all. And I see this, this like nice car that's driving by. And I'm like, yo, that ain't important at all. My grandfather is about to die. And that the guy who taught me how to ride a bike, the guy who's been telling me to cut my hair all this time, the guy who's like, hey man, you gotta lose a little bit of weight, man. The guy who's just been joking our whole life, always moving around and out and about riding his bike, and he just can't move. And like the importance of that car, the importance of money, the importance of these like superficial things, it's like it shows the lack of importance in it. And I was thinking about it this morning, like in Kobe's situation with, what would he have paid to get to acknowledge that and know that he was about to die? What would he have paid to not experience that, to essentially be alive? What would his wife have paid? So what is the importance of those things when we look at life? And then if we recognize that we're all going to reach that point one day where we're going to, be deceased, what is the importance of it now?
Yeah.
What is the importance of it? Like I'm using a MacBook, right? And I'm thinking like, what's the importance of like having the latest and greatest? What's the importance when I think what's more important right now is I can connect with Justin over the internet and be like, yo, what's up, bro? Like, it's been a while since I've seen you since we did our last progression conference. Man, I'd rather have that than all this superficial shit.
I agree. I mean, that's a huge, huge takeaway. It's always people over things. And I think in the wake of these tragedies and, not just Kobe, everyone that passed on that plane or anyone that has passed period in life, when you experience that, they would pay any amount of money to get them back. Kobe's worth like $500 million. I'm sure his wife would drain that bank account to not only get Kobe back, but also her 13-year-old daughter, or anybody in that circumstance. And when you look at that people over things mentality, man, Kobe had it all, using him as an example, every material you could imagine. And to be gone so young, the one thing that he's left behind besides the sadness, the tragedy, is his legacy. And the one thing that I see you doing, which always impressed me from the start, being like, wow, this guy's 25, like he's a multimillionaire. He has a book out, No More Average. He's packing different types of speaking rooms full. He has tons of mentors, some of the biggest names you could imagine there. But the one thing that you're doing while alive, like you said, you're impacting people. The materials come with it. I hear you, speak. And when you do speak, you speak to impact people. You speak to add value. You don't say, hey, I'm rich. You'll be like, hey, you know what? You'll tell a story about it. I was poor. I did this, this, and this. I worked on it. I acquired this. This is how you can do it too. But you don't stop there. You keep helping people to where I've seen it firsthand in the actual conferences. People's lives literally change. Like you see that light bulb go off, and when you're on stage, when you are talking, and the one thing you can do, which I'll commend you command the room. You have the power clap. I know you could probably vouch for that. If anyone's ever been to a progression conference, they know about that. But it's just when you're on stage, do you feel like in what we're speaking of right now and the importance of legacy, as you tell your stories, is it to inspire others to create their own legacy, to continue to progress towards that, or is it just basically to give that impact and kind of give them the steps and then watch them walk on their own?
No, it's really about, like, the reason I do that is because I even do these events is I started seeing that there's a lack of action being taken. And what I started, maybe it's God putting me in direction or whatever, but I started taking action at a young age quickly, and I'm known for taking quick action, So like I'll give you an example. This is gonna be a small example, but this goes to show. Like I have a potential salesperson who wants to work for me, and he's like, yo, Andy, this person is interested in the program. I was like, what's the person's name? And they were like, okay, let's say for example, Justin Collins. So I was like, okay, what's the person's name? Justin Collins. Okay, so tell me about Justin. He wants to purchase. And then he's telling me about it. And then what he's saying to me is like, I think I should call him. Like, I really am interested in calling him. I should call him to purchase. I said, okay, it's interesting that you said that because I have him on the phone. He just picked up, hey, Justin. Hey, Andy Audate here. How are you? And the difference between the two is like this person was like thinking about it and was like, oh, I should. Maybe I shouldn't, and giving me the whole story. And I'm like, yo, let me take action before knowledge.
Yeah, that's huge.
Let me take action before knowledge. So now these two intercede: action before knowledge, and then knowledge before action. In my life, in many instances, I take action before knowledge, but there are many times where I need to have the knowledge in order to take the right action. So you gotta be able to play with it, but typically it's action before knowledge.
I would agree with that. In many cases, the do is always better than the not do, or the inactive opposed to the active. And, the one thing that I'm impressed with, I know you mentioned one thing about taking the action, about, knowing what to do. The one thing that I see that you do well, is you're always mentally sharp. You have a mindset that is fit, it's in shape. And the bigger thing that I see you do talking about action over inaction, me having a lot of listeners that are in the fitness space, want to lose weight, want to have that transformation. The one thing I love is when I see you 4 o'clock in the morning, at the gym when most people are sleeping. You're not just working on your mind. I also see you in the gym working on your body, looking to get, more in shape, eating healthier. because you understand, like, when you take care of your body, it takes care of your mind, everything takes care of itself. What would you say along your ways, because you've had a journey in many different directions, being more of a healthy person, sticking to that, getting to the gym, taking the action, over the, I'll get to it, or the person that thinks of going to the gym but doesn't go?
Well, what I recognize is that there's a system that subconsciously takes place, and you got to really utilize the system. Now, there's some systems that are common amongst all men, and there are some systems that are what do you call it, specific for that individual. So, like, one of the systems that are common amongst all men is what you and I talked about a couple months ago when you came to speak at my first progression conference, and you came to my office. One of the things you shared with me was making the bed early in the morning and making sure that the dishes are clean before you go to bed. Ever since you and I had that talk, my bed is always made, my dishes
Nice.
are clean. And what I recognize is that the subconsciously set my day up for the remainder. So now I woke up with that little win. Now the next thing is like, okay, I gotta I gotta make sure my teeth is taken care of. But then that's like the system. Now because I set up the system that's common amongst all men, which is now men as in women, human. So clean dishes is gonna declutter your mind. The clean bed is gonna say that I have applied discipline early on in the morning. Now the uncommon system is gonna be like, for me, for example, I do wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, what supports me waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning is that I sleep with the lights on. So every day I just got a call from the apartment company that they're like, hey, electricity. And I'm like, yeah, but I sleep with the lights on, and it's a necessity. Now I told them that on social media, and some people told me on social media that they stopped following me and they're dissatisfied with that, because as if I don't care about the planet and the energy or something of that nature. But I think what's more important than the planet's energy and nature is my goals. And the reason why I'm so focused inward on my goals is because I recognize that when I complete my goals, other people are going to move and progress humanity in their point of view. So my goals is as equivalent as global warming.
Yeah.
That's how I look. My bubble is so important. It's equivalent to global warming. So, but the system that I'm using is the lights, keeping the light on. Why do I use that? Well, what happens in my natural self is that somehow, some way, if the lights are off, I wake up 3 hours past my alarm's still ringing, and then I wake up to 15 screenshots of my alarm from my phone, saved in my photos. Or so I was fiddling with my phone, but this is all on a subconscious level. So what happens is, when I sleep with my mask and I take off my mask and it's bright for me to shut off my alarm, the shock to my eyes wakes up my brain, and I'm like, yo, what the hell? This is bright as hell. And then I get my day started and going. So some people may say, oh, you're lucky, or, oh, that's just you. Well, how can you wake up at that early, 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, I have created a system that works for me. So you have systems for the common man, you have systems for the uncommon man.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's sometimes you have to do what works best for you, and I know some people, the one thing I started with Tom Billio, he had that challenge about taking cold showers in the morning, and a lot of people that I know that are successful take little cold showers to start their day, wake up their mind, shock their body, and kind of get their day started like a jump start. I know Tony Robbins does it. I know many other individuals, Ed Mylett does it. So many different people vouch for that. And it's the same type of thing. Some people like warm showers. Some like cold. Some like to sleep with the lights off. In your case, you sleep with the lights on, but it's a purpose. And, for all the individuals that have something to say, there's always someone with an opinion. But it's better when someone has a plan. And I know the plan that you have, that light that is on when you go to sleep, it's kind of like the light that you're omitting to the world, that you're amplifying. And the more people that you help, eventually will help other people, not only yourself, but they'll help themselves shine in their own light. And the one thing that you seem to do very well is motivate people to do just that. And that little tiny thing for the uncommon or the common, just leaving that light on is such a tiny thing that helps you to progress further. Even if it's an inch a day, that inch a day adds up over the course of the year, way better than not doing it at all.
Yeah, man. Like when I look at my day and I say, okay, so I've been up for I've been up for 11 and a half hours. It's 2:34 California time right now. I've been up for 11 and a half hours. And just to recognize that some people woke up 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like there are some people who woke up just 5 hours ago, and so I'm essentially 5.5 hours ahead of them. So, you take that 5.5 hours, round it up to 5 hours, multiply that by 30 days. I have 150 hours on top of somebody. Multiply that by a year. We're talking about a lot of hours here. We're talking about 150, 1,500, boom, 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 do the math, 1,800 hours that I had extra on somebody. 1,800 hours, and we only have 24 in one day. So I have nearly a month over. So I have 13 months while someone else has 12.
Exactly. And that's a huge thing. Just when I get a lot of messages, and I'm so glad you just said this, because so many people are like, oh, I only had 10 minutes, so I didn't do anything. Or I only had 5 minutes, I didn't do anything. I read a stat that if you waste 1 minute a day, that's 6 hours a month. So if you think about that, just doing that over the course of 4 months, that's a day. And it's like giving your example, like you said, you're compressing time to where the average person wakes up, you're already 6 hours ahead. And the speed that you're working and progressing over the course of a year, like you said, you're up 13 months to their 12. You do that for 5 years, you're up 6 months. You do that for a decade, you've got a year plus on someone. And if they're trying to catch you, they're trying to progress past you, there's really no way they can pull that off, because you're just going to gradually continue to create the space and the distance, which is so
Kobe had that understanding, man. Kobe had that understanding, and he did the math when he was 17. And when he was 17, he did that math. And then he ended up doing the math to the point where he was waking up at 4. Yeah. And he did the math where after so many years, he had a 5-year gap in between someone who started off with them. He said, I have so much practice time over you, you can't catch up now. I have 5 years on top of you, you can't catch up. And then the reason he was in the helicopter was, get this, man, this is how you really control time. So in Los Angeles, traffic is crazy. Los Angeles traffic is crazy. So one of the reasons Kobe got the helicopter was because his wife was saying, hey, babe, we got to go pick up the kids after school, but you're at practice. So he decided that instead of driving in Los Angeles traffic and then not being able to pick up his kids, he said, hey, I want that 20-minute car ride with my kids when I pick them up from school and bring them home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a helicopter, get it from the court, go home. Instead of staying in traffic, take a 15-minute ride home instead of an hour and a half or 2 hours in traffic. Take a 15-minute ride home, get in my car, drive, pick up my kids, and still make it in on time. So that's one of the reasons why he got the helicopter in the first place. So even at that level of success, you recognize that time is precious, man. I have friends, and we have mutual friends who they have drivers now. They're saying to themselves like, hey, you know what? It makes more sense for me to get a driver than do the job than me drive. One of my first mentors when I came to California, Jonathan Lee, he's a multi-millionaire in the copier industry. And when I was working for him, he was like, his thought process was, I got a Mercedes-Benz, I'm gonna hire a driver. And he was doing sales. He was still doing sales. He was going to meet up with clients, but it was much more easier for him to pay someone a couple of $100 an hour for the day, and for him to be on the computer checking into his database and cleaning up his database and meeting with clients than driving an hour and a half between OC and LA and back to OC.
Yeah. It makes such a difference. I just saw recently an interview with Dan Fleshman was talking about that with LA traffic. And he's like, I'm on my phone so much. If I have to take an Uber ride, and he's like, it's an hour car ride. If I have to drive that, I can't do anything. And if I'm trying to be safe, I can't be on my phone. And he's like, but if I'm in the backseat of a car, that's 1 hour of work I can get finished to where I'm ahead when I get to my destination, or I've already worked something out for later in the day, set up other appointments. It's just, there's little secrets that you find out, but they're not necessarily secrets if you'd like to call them hacks. It's just little things you can do to progress your life forward faster. And I know the one thing that I look forward to, being that you have the Progression Conference. And the one thing that I know that maybe others are finding out that they'll know very soon is the Progression Conference Tour. And I know when I've heard about that, I was excited. I know many people were very excited hearing about that with all the lives you're going to impact with that. Maybe if you'd like to share when that's coming up, where you might be going, if people want to get any type of ticket, what your objective is for the tour, because that's such a huge and impactful thing.
The Progression Conference, first of all, the event itself, it's a one-day business seminar. And it's focused on three things: sales, marketing, and personal development. The sales aspect is to be able to increase your income. What I have discovered is that when people's finances are low, every other area has challenges. Even their relationship with their spouse has challenges. I know people who their health has declined. They're fit, but their health has declined because the stress of money has deteriorated their health, and also affected their livelihood with their spouse, all because of finances. So I teach people how to increase sales in their business, so that way they can take care of their foundation of life. But when you're in sales, you're gonna end up reaching a cap. You're gonna end up reaching your ceiling that you can't extend past. So what you're gonna need to do is market yourself correctly. So that's the second part of the event, is to focus on marketing. Now, marketing does come before sales. Before you end up creating a product, you have to get that product. Before you end up selling a product, you have to get that product known. So that's the marketing aspect. So the question is, how many people do you want to know your product? Is it 10 people in your neighborhood? Is it 100 people in your city? Or is it 1,000 people in your state? Or is it 1,000,000 people nationwide? So how wide do you want to get that product to be known? So I teach you how to market, I teach you how to sell, and then throughout the challenges of running a business, you're going to experience these multiple challenges, which will include fatigue, which will include mentorship, which will include this overall personal blockages. And what I've discovered is that personal development has gotten over the top 500 successful individuals. Personal development is what got them through those challenges. So I also give personal development strategies at the seminar. So you got sales, marketing, and personal development all in one day to accelerate your life. The shirt that I'm wearing right now, for example, it says "Progress Daily." April 27th, 2019, I had somebody in the audience. He's sitting up front row. A week prior to my event, he was talking to his sister, and he was talking to his sister about him potentially leaving his 9-to-5 job, but he was fearful to leave. And so he told his sister, like, "Sis, I want to leave, but I don't know." His sister was like, "Hey, why don't you go for it?" Well, he didn't really listen to his sister. Unfortunately, she got into an accident and passed away shortly thereafter. Then he came to the progression conference within a couple of days. He sat up front at the progression conference that you and I spoke at. The progression conference took place on a Friday. By Monday, what he experienced throughout the progression conference on Friday was people sharing their stories of growth, the different strategies of marketing, sales, and personal development. By Monday, he quit his 9-to-5 dead-end job, and he started an apparel manufacturing company. Within 8 months, he's telling me he reconnected with me. He said, "Andy, I never got to tell you what happened after the progression conference. My life just took off, that I was just holding on for dear life because it was just so much progression in my life." As we talk, Andy, I'm currently fulfilling a 10,000 piece order, and I'm like, wow. So your business completely boomed because you took action. You came to the event. So the opportunity isn't to show up. Man, I tell you, no question, no doubt, the opportunity isn't to show up. I showed up, and then now the next thing that happened in my life is I really started to progress, to take care of my family and my girlfriend. So when he shared with me that story, I said, your DNA has to be part of the material, because now I'm promoting progression as a fitness brand, and there's an apparel line now. I want you to be the one to create it because your DNA gets to live with it.
That's amazing. I mean, that's an incredible story, an incredible share. And the opportunity truly isn't to show up, because if he wasn't in the room, that information, that opportunity, that energy that was given to him might not have had that result of him actually taking action and doing something, but actually being there, seeing it, being a part of it, taking action, and now getting to the point where he's fulfilling orders that large and you're working together, for your impact, the apparel line. It's incredible. It's kind of like a full circle thing that happens so fast, all off of one connection, which was the progression conference.
Yeah, man. And even at the event, like there were these twin girls up front. I think one of them followed you, learned about the conference through you, came to the progression conference. My understanding is that they heard my story about me going on tour with the legendary motivational speaker Les Brown. So these two young girls, I think they're like 21 or something, or 22. They go to another event after mine. After hearing what happened at the progression conference, they got up on stage at that event. They brought up that the fact that they came to LA for the progression conference, and they recognized that the opportunity wasn't to show up. So they showed up to this opportunity at this other event called Think and Grow Rich. And once they got there, they heard about the opportunity of going on tour with that organization. So they went to the leader of the organization and said, hey, I want to go on tour with you. And ironically, it's very similar to the way that I did it to my mentor, Les Brown, where I said, to my mentor, I said, I want to go on tour with you. So they kept on being persistent, and then eventually they went on tour. And it's really in the show up, but it's when you don't show up, you're not going to receive an opportunity. And what I've recognized, and I mean, literally the thousands of sales calls that I've had, hundreds of people that I've connected with, thousands of people that I presented in front of, I see the same common thing. The people who doubt are broke. The people who doubt are broke. So when I say the opportunities in the show up and come receive your opportunity, the people who are doubting are broke, and then they go from broke to poor very fast. Now, poor is an acronym. Poor stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. POOR, passing over opportunities repeatedly. So, and when there was a time that I doubted a couple of years ago, I doubted an opportunity for me, and God corrected me, and he said, hey man, take this leap of faith. So I listened and I took a leap of faith. But had I not taken the opportunity, man, I would still be in a place of wishing. So I've seen in my life where people who say that, you know, they're 30 years old, they're 20 years old, they're 40 years old, 50 years old. They say that they want something in the future, and they think they have time. So for example, hey, I want to be a speaker. I get this all the time because in my business, I train speakers as well. So I get this all the time where, hey, Andy, I've been wanting to be a speaker since I was 20 years old, or since I was 25, or since I was 30. And I say, where are you at right now? They say, I'm 40 or I'm 50. I say, well, what has happened in the interim? Oh, this got in the way, that got in the way, this got in the way. What I recognize is that you've had multiple opportunities and you passed it over. Yep. Now, I get on the call with them, and it's very ironic. I give them an opportunity, and then they pass it over again. A year later passes. A year passes. And I say, where have you been? And they tell me in the same position. Yep. Now, many times, what I've seen is that these individuals go in denial, where they're completely in denial. They're like, no, I'm going to, trust me, God is on my side. I'm going to give me 6 months, give me a year. And then a year passes. You know, so the progression conference, the one that recently passed in Los Angeles in October, I had a woman on stage. She was 63 years old, 63. She shared with me that for the last 43 years, she's had this vision of being a speaker and an author. Within I think 6 to 10, so that's 4 months. From June to October, we published her book, and she became a full-time speaker. She's now hosting her own seminars. Prior to her joining my program, she was completely still at a place of wishing. And then equivalently, in the same time frame, I had another talk with someone else, and I said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to go through my program, my speaker training program. And they said, I'll think about it. Well, they've been thinking about it ever since. While the 63-year-old completely passed them, this now 30-year-old is still in a position where they're still thinking about it.
Yep. So
you're either going to think your way to success and get there in your mind, or you're going to actually get there in real life.
I love that. That's such a big difference and a massive shift in being successful, or the thought of being successful. It's a wish. You know, it's like you can, in your mind, like you said, having that denial, having that I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there. But when you look in the mirror, the accountability mirror every morning, you're not doing what it's going to take to get you to that point, and you're not showing up. And like you said, passing over opportunities repeatedly, like when you go through that, you're going to stay stuck. You know, and if you're in a hole, the last thing you want to do is shovel more dirt on yourself. You want to get out, but the only way to get out, that's action. You have to move. And a lot of people
not only is it a wish, I want to bring up, Justin, not only is it a wish, it's a fantasy.
Yes.
And now here's the thing about fantasy, and I discovered this after studying this. I discovered that fantasy drops dopamine in your brain when you fantasize. So equivalently to heroin, equivalently to cocaine, equivalently to sugar, there's a spike in your bloodstream when you fantasize. So as if you're talking about it as if you're going to do it, you start to feel good. Yo, one day, man, I'm gonna be on that stage, man. I'm gonna be talking about my book, man. Oh man, I'm gonna be a billionaire, man. Oh wait. All right, let's go, baby. Let's take action. Oh no, I ain't ready for yet. Give me a year. Give me 6 months. Let me think about it. Hold on a second. I'm not ready for it yet.
Yep.
And that's the biggest lie that man ever said.
Yeah.
Give me some time. That's the biggest lie.
That's a big point. And the big point about that, even though it's give me some time, you know, the big thing about life, yes, there is time. Time moves fast. Life is short. Life is long, depending how you live it. If you live the right life, a short life can be great. But most people get to the end of their life. At 25, they stopped living. And 75, they passed away. In 50 years, they just wasted time. And many people think I have time. And it's just like every single day, life isn't guaranteed. And the one thing you do have a guarantee of is the opportunity. If you wake up and your eyes move, you have you have some air in your lungs, you can talk, you can hear, you can smell, you can see. That's all you need to go after your goals and dreams and create them. You know,
but that's not enough, man. Come on, JC. That's not enough. You know that's not enough, man. You know there's somebody that's listening to that follows you, that been following for a year, and completely lost control of their weight in their life. That's not enough, man. What do they really need? It's more than just like, oh, I got another opportunity to live. It's more than that, because they're mentally fucked up. Like, what else do they really need?
They need that opportunity. They got to take that action. They need the goal. They need the why. I
think they got to get around you.
That is true.
I think they got to show up to your gym.
That is also true.
Well, what gym you work out? Right?
Say it again?
What gym you work out at?
Rice Gym.
Rice Gym, right?
Yes.
Look, I said rights too. I said rights, and for some reason that's what came up in my mind. But I think that's because of what you post on social media. Now, look, man, if I was in a predicament and I needed to progress, man, I'm gonna pull up on Rice Gym.
That's the only place you get in the proximity. We're gonna put in some work.
Exactly, and I'm gonna see on your thing on social media. I'm gonna see like, yo, you keep pulling up at this certain time. And I'm gonna pull up on you. I'm gonna be like, what's up, JC? And be like, who are you? I'm gonna be like, yo, I follow you on Instagram, man. I've been peeping your stuff, man. I need to change my life. Look, you spoke in April, yeah. So you met Sam Bakhtiar.
Yes. Yep.
All right, Sam Bakhtiar. The way I did a podcast with him, so I was just one out of the hundreds of people that did a podcast with him. But here's the difference of how me and his relationship progressed, where I really consider him a friend, a mentor, and even a brother. And he does the same for me as well. I don't know, last year, so this time, maybe like in March of last year, I go to do the podcast with him, and then I'm at my office like a couple of days later. I leave my office at 1 o'clock in the morning. I see on his social media that 22 hours prior, he was at the gym. So I see that he goes to the gym at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I see that he's at the gym, and he tagged the location. He put 24 hours, Chino Hill. I tapped on it. I was already wearing sweatpants. So I tapped on it, put it in Google Maps. I pull up to the gym at 1:30. He comes to the gym at 4 in the morning. So I did a workout from 1:30 to 4. Soft, dull workout. 4 o'clock, he comes in. Literally, he's over there. This is me. This is me. And I know he about to see me too, but I don't want to be like no fan or nothing. So I'm like this. So he sees you like, what's up, Andy? I'm like, oh, what's up, Sam? He's like, yo, what's up, man? I'm like, yo, let's get a workout in. We got a workout in. I said, hey, man, I'm gonna see you tomorrow then. I saw him the next day. Well, it's been about a year, man. It's been almost a year we've been working out. So, and with his support, I started building the system of waking up that early, because prior to that, I was waking up at like 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I didn't text him and say, hey, can I work out with you? Or, hey, what would it take for me to work out with you? I showed up. That's where the opportunity is at. I showed up. Because I showed up, I made the right relationships. I got the right personal trainer. And then that started instilling habits in me. I am not strong enough. I recognize that, Justin. I'm not strong enough to go to that next level. I need to get around the right people who are going to support me to go up there. And then the public might see that oh my gosh, man, look what Andy did. Andy ain't do shit. I had somebody call me at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, get your ass up out of bed. Yep. And then that started making it a habit. Now I'm the one calling someone like, yo, get your ass up out of bed. So
Yep.
you learn, you earn, and you pass it on.
I love that. That's an amazing story, an amazing point of reference that people can take away. You know, a lot of people, I'm going to come to the gym with you. I'm still working out alone and I'm waiting for those people to show up. You know, and it's like, hey, people tell me the same thing. If you want to learn, you have to show up. I know when I met you initially, Ali Zamani, big shout out to Ali, he said, I like you. I'm going to connect you to Andy. You guys are going to get along really well. Made the connection. We talked on the phone. You're like, you're going to speak at my event. I said, I'll be there. Showed up to the event, and now a year later, we're on a podcast together. But it's crazy because of the people that we're around. Every single day I see the people that you have on your podcast, the places you are, the people you're speaking with. I can see the success stories, but I also see, like you said, the biggest skill that a lot of successful people have is the ability to be vulnerable and admit that they don't know something. You know, and if you're like, hey, I might not be the guy that's going to wake up and work out, but Sam is. And I'm going to get around Sam because he's going to help my mindset catch up to be the new standard of going to the gym every morning. And that progression happens, you know, but like you said, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't show up. You know, that opportunity truly, it's the most simple phrase, but if you keep that in your head every single day, you're always going to make the right choice because it truly is in the show up. You can't eat at the table if you don't sit down for the plate, you know?
Yo, for real, man. I'm telling you the story to your people who's listening, man. A couple years ago, I was charging. I didn't know how much money to charge in this industry. Like, how much is my time, right? You know, we talk about that all the time where it's like, oh, my time is worth whatever. But how do I, especially at a young age, so I'm 22. How do I determine like my value of my time? So I just set a number and it was like $2.99 a month for 4 hours. So for 2 hours per week. So that's 8 hours of my time for $300.
Yep.
That was a couple years ago. And then I sat down at a table and with Grant Cardone and Brad Lee. And literally that night they invited me back to Vegas. They're coaching me, working with me. Within that, so now I'm charging. So at this time, my income, as far as the clients, must have been like $600. Mm-hmm. And within that weekend that I had dinner with Brad and Grant, within so that event was like on a Tuesday or something. Then by the next Friday, I made $5,000 on Friday. Then that woman went to someone else. So I got a client, and instead of charging her $2.99, I said, hey, it's $5,000 to work with me. So she paid $5,000 to work with me. And then after that, she went to her boyfriend and she said, hey, yo, coach with Andy. So I made $10,000 that weekend. And then I met somebody at that event that I went to go meet up with Grant and Brad. And on that following Tuesday, that person wanted to do a deal with me, and I charged them $6,000. So from Friday to Tuesday, I made 16,000, and my mind just blew up. My mind just blew up to what was possible. So now, if someone wants to coach, I don't even do that type of coaching anymore. But if someone wanted to do coaching, it's $10,000 for one day over 2 4-hour blocks. And people buy that. But I don't even want to do that anymore because I make more in my actual business now. Yeah. Well, what I recognize is because I had to get to the table. But here's what it took to get to that table. At the time, I took a financial dip. I had so much cash that I spent it all without ever working. I was retired. My first book was actually 21 and retired before I turned it into No More Average.
Got it.
So I had so much cash that I just blew it. It took me a year to blow out all the cash, traveling, luxurious apartments and all that. So I blew it. Now I don't even know what industry I'm in. I just had to choose. So I ended up going to copier industry for a little bit. Then I went to sales training, and then real estate. But then I took a financial low and I only had $300 in my bank account. And when I had that $300 in my bank account 3 years ago, there was an opportunity to go to see Grant Cardone and see Bradley in person. I decided not to for a moment. I said, now I'm not going to go. I'm just going to watch it online. So I went to the website. I typed in the free code, watched it, was watching online. The Brad, which is one of the speakers, was saying like, hey, congratulations to the people that showed up in this room. You were supposed to be here, clapping for yourselves. So everyone was clapping for themselves. And once I saw that, I was like, yo, I got to be in that room. By the time I got to the event, the ticket was $600, but when I got to the event, they dropped the ticket down to $99 because it was 5 o'clock. The event ends at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
But what in a right person's mind, why would they show up to an event that ends in 2 hours? But I showed up anyway. When I showed up, I walked in, I paid my $99, and it was $100 out of $300 in my bank account. I'm distraught. I walk in. As soon as I walk in, there's a dude that has a podcast. He's like, "Yo, man, Andy, I've been following you, dude. I've been trying to get on this dude's podcast for a while, man."
Yeah.
We end up connecting. But it was that night where I had dinner with Grant Cardone and Brad Lee. That's one of the two millionaire speakers. Within a week at that, I made my 16,000. Blew my mind. Ever since then, it's just been going uphill, going uphill. Just going up ever since then. Like I never took a dip again.
It's incredible.
But I share that with you not to really impress your audience, but to impress upon them. Like the opportunity truly isn't a show up. I could have financially fucked myself over had I passed over the opportunity and remained poor and remain in that position. But instead, I took a decision and a leap of faith where I said, "Hey, I don't really have this money, but I'm gonna take that jump." That's why I give the people the opportunity to come to the Progression Conference and show up. And if they show up, they show up. If they don't, they don't. But for the people that show up, they truly get the value that really revolutionizes their life.
I love that, Andy. That's an incredible story and so true. And you live that every single day, which is even more impressive because you actually are doing the things that you have done and you're actually telling the tale to show people that it's possible. They just have to get in the room. And I think that's a phenomenal way to kind of take it out today because I love it. The opportunity is in this show up. So just to take us out, where can they show up if they want to get a hold of, let's say, go to the next Progression Conference or get a hold of Andy Audate? Where can they find you?
The best spot right now is go to progressionticket.com. Once again, that's progression, PROGRESSION, progressionticket.com. Get your ticket to the Progression Conference, the next one on our national tour.
That's amazing. And where can they find you on social media? Because I love your Instagram account, but just to let them know, because you're the man behind the man, where can they find you on social media? What's your best channels?
At Andy Audate, ANDYAUDATE.
Okay, excellent. And the last question, I know you're on the Finest Hour podcast, but this is your time to shine and plug away. Your podcast is also amazing. I know I was a guest on it. Where can they find that or give them the name of that so they can Google that up and search it on iTunes?
Man, our show was like one of the top rated shows, man. Like it was a short one. It was interesting. It was short, but really top rated. And it's at the Progression Show on Spotify and iTunes. So the Progression Show, Spotify and iTunes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andy. I'm going to put all that in the show notes and list that up, put all the links there for you so people can come get the tickets to Progression Conference, check you on social, as well as go and check the podcast and listen to some gems. But I thank you for being a guest today on the Finest Hour podcast. I know the valued impact is going to be crazy. And we're going to leave on your note today, not my usual do and be the best you. We're going to leave on this one. The opportunity is where?
In the show, baby. In the show. Thank you so much for having me on the show, JC.
Hey, you're welcome, Andy. Thanks, man.